Welcome to the Rabia and Sana show. We're two Desi girls reinventing cultural norms with love to make difficult conversations easier to help you take courageous steps faster.
Whether you feel like a misfit now or have been breaking the standards, this podcast is for you, for the adults, the young. Come as you be and become your authentic self as you desire. Let's go reinvent some cultural norms together.
Hello everyone, I am Rabia Paracha. I have been a rebel without a cause for most of my life until I discovered my purpose to empower women to empower themselves. And that led me down a rabbit hole to become a life coach from CTI Coactive Coaching. And today I'm a mind and life power coach who helps people break free of their limiting cultural beliefs to find the life they love and the love of their life.
Hello everyone, I am Sana. I am from New Jersey, a Pakistani American. Professionally, I work in the clinical research field. And personally, I have always had this purpose of empowering women of South Asian culture to be able to live the life that they want to live and be true to themselves instead of what the culture expects them to be. And so here I am pursuing that purpose, and I am also studying to become a life coach. Let's get started.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 6. Today we are going to be talking about a phrase that Sana has coined, and that is no one is coming to save you.
I am really excited about this topic, Rabia, because as you know, this means a lot to me. You know, when you and I first started talking about our journeys, the first thing I said to you that my biggest realization was when I got started in this was that no one is coming to save me. And it was this one sentence made me realize that I was actually waiting for somebody to come save me, somebody or something to happen to make me come out of my discomfort, come out of this feeling that I am in this life that I'm not happy in. So somehow something or someone is going to come save me. And so I wanted to talk about this in our episode because I think that this is a mindset that a lot of the females in our culture have, that someone is coming to save us, you know?
This is a huge part of our culture. As women, we've been conditioned to believe that, our father will take care of us, our brothers will take care of us, our husbands will take care of us, that someone will always be there to take care of us and protect us and save us.
I used to have this image of a knight in shining armor coming on the horse, wearing his armor and saving.
The damsel in distress. So no one's coming to save you, or the thought that someone is going to come and save us.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't exclusive to the South Asian culture. That is in every culture, because we've got stories like Cinderella, the Sleeping Beauty, Snow White.
Even Tangled, Rapunzel is in a tower.
Yes. And so all of these stories that we've been brought up with always show the woman as the weaker one that needs the saving. So it's just natural. And even a lot of our movies, they all have this underlying theme that the woman needs to get saved. Sure, there's some exceptions where we've got Superwoman, Wonder Woman, Batwoman, but they're less compared to the stories that show women as weak and in need of saving.
Yeah. I mean, and women are generally weaker, right, in any way than men. And so that whole, especially the fairy tales, because fairy tales we watch when we're young, and it has a different impact on the growing mind. And things like Cinderella, with not just the prince, saving her from her situation, it was also the fairy godmother, so something like supernatural like that happening, like with magic coming out of nowhere because she's crying. I think that really did impact me as a child, think that something supernatural will happen if something in this world cannot happen,
Yes, and I want to break this down, both these things that you've said. One is that you have this idea that someone's going to come and save you, and then someone does come and save you.
Mm-hmm.
So both can happen. So I remember in Cinderella in particular that she's crying, she's down, she's probably talking to the higher power, and boom, the fairy godmother shows up. So it's okay to ask for the help, but not to expect someone to read my mind and say, hey, let me help you.
Yeah, she didn't really ask for help. She just sat there and cried, and it showed up.
But here's the thing. When we pray or when we communicate with a higher power, we're not always out loud. We can have conversations through prayer without saying it out loud. And in that story, I'm presuming that she, in those tears, was talking in a certain way. And the reason we're using this as an example is because everybody knows the story.
Yep.
And then the fairy godmother shows up and she waves her magic wand. As kids, we don't know what I've just said, that when we're crying, we can be asking for help. We don't have to ask people for help always. We can just ask for help to the universe, to God.
Yeah.
And sometimes those prayers are answered, but not to ask and expect God will take care of everything. That's another way that I've been in my past. And I even have some coaching clients, and I was actually speaking with one of them the other day, and you need to put down your ego to ask. There's a lot of pride and ego playing when we ask or don't ask. And so we were talking about her financial situation. And I said, you know what? I know that we want someone to walk in and hand us the money, hand us the check, or give us something that we need. And she said, you know what? I've had that thought. I just think magically some guy will come into my life and say, hey, let me take care of, I'll take care of everything for you. So that wishful thinking without taking the steps that will get you that particular outcome, that's the dangerous part.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, that you sitting there, Cinderella is maybe praying, but don't expect it to show up out of nowhere, because that's what happened to her. But it doesn't happen like that. You still have to do the actions in real life. You can't expect magically something to happen to come and help you. The actions still need to be there. But that expectation, I think, is built in us.
Absolutely. That expectation of someone's going to show up, whisk us away into this fairy tale world. I think all of these things are so conditioned, being the princess, doing nothing, just leisurely hanging out, doing nothing, and everything else will get done. But there's a term called the Mrs. degree. So the girls go to the schools, you go from high school, they get into med school, or they get into a particular type of profession because they want to marry that prince. And the only place they're going to find the prince that they want to marry is in a particular program. So, that book by John Gray, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. One of the points he makes is that location, location, location. If you want a particular type of person, then you've got to show up in the location that type of person is going to be. So for those people who want to be married and they want to sit at home and wait for the prince to come to their house and knock on their door without getting into the program that they're going to meet them in, that's delusional. But then when they take that step and they say, okay, I'm going to go to university, I'm going to get a particular type of degree because this is the type of person I want to meet. Now, by all means, it's not a guarantee, but you increase your chances. But if we're sitting at home, someone's going to come save me and whisk me away to my, fairy tale land. You've got to work with the process. You've got to work with the process so that you meet somebody where they are. So location, 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 just like in real estate, you've got to find that location.
Yeah. But then our culture, it kind of builds this expectation. Like, I think it was all of these things, right? The stories and everything. And also the way some of the things in the culture are shown to us when we are raised, right? Like the biggest thing was marriage is, your next goal in life. And some of the things that I wanted to do growing up, it was always like, do it after you get married. So it's sort of like I still need to be dependent on somebody to help me do those things, or dependent on someone else to get those things completed, like go to school or get a degree, get a career, learn how to drive, go travel around the world. It's like you got to do it with your husband because he has to like chaperone you or something,
Yeah, great point. Because that husband is then, we see it as our freedom ticket.
Yes.
It is permission. So now that we have the husband, we can have freedom. And so someone has come to save us, to give us our freedom. It's this vicious cycle that mentality. Oh, I'm in my parents' home. I can't do all this. Just wait till I find my knight in shining armor.
Knight in shining armor.
You get your ticket to do everything because you no longer need the permission of your parents.
Exactly. That's what my mindset was. I was like, okay, there's my knight in shining armor, my key to out of this cage to the freedom that I always want. And then once you get there, then there's a whole set of other problems that come with that. And you continuously keep on searching for that knight in shining armor, or that someone is coming.
Yeah, and I want to add that we are raised in our culture to be dependent. Like women are raised to be dependent on men, on their parents. And also in our culture, men are taught to save, to be the protector, to be the provider. So they're taking on that role to save their family, to help their family. And there is that underlying theme of someone's going to save you is happening on the female side. On the men's side, it's more, oh, you've got to save them. And I think both are, if not understood properly, can be dangerous.
Yeah, they're thinking they have to save the women from their problems. At the same time, they have so many other pressures that they have to take care of the family. They have to financially be the breadwinner. They have to keep the mothers and the wife situation handled. So it's a lot of different types of pressure coming from the male perspective. And then the female, we just so dependent that we want to dump all of our problems on the men as soon as we get married. It's like even like our emotional problems, like we think that he is somehow supposed to fix everything for us because we're so dependent on the male figure after we get married too.
And so that dependence is disempowering because it's always about looking at the outer world to give us what we want to feel satisfied with in our inner world. And so that dependency is so debilitating because if you're stuck in a situation that you don't have a solution for, that you don't know what to do, and you're not encouraged to talk about problems. Some of our cultural norms is that we're not encouraged to talk about problems. We're not encouraged to complain. We're encouraged to just darguzar, put up with it, tolerate it, endure it. And because we can't speak about it, then we have this wishful thinking. Oh, I wish someone would just dart in on their horse and save me, just whisk me away.
Yeah. So I want to understand, Rabia, what you were telling me earlier, having that understanding that being independent and dependent is not bad when we see the beauty of interdependence and intradependence. Can you just help me understand that a little bit better?
Yeah. So let's break this down. Dependency, interdependency, and intradependency. Independency.
4 things.
So there are 4 different topics and they're all connected. So our culture, we're very interdependent. We rely on each other. We rely on each other. That we can't do this alone, that there is a dependency that each of us has. The male side, someone's going to take care of me. So that dependency is there. Even this theory of someone's going to save me is on the male as well. They are saying, oh, how am I going to cook? How am I going to clean? How am I going to wash my clothes? How am I going to? So I'm just saying these are some cultural norms where the roles are very specific in our culture. You know, the wife, the mother, the daughter does these things, and the son, the father, the brother does these things. It's very clear as to the roles. And so both roles have been conditioned to believe that someone is going to save them. And so if 2 people agree that this is our roles, then it's interdependence. And so we rely on each other. It's no longer saving. We rely on each other. We know that we've decided you are going to go outside of the home. And it could be now today because of how times are changing. It could be totally reversed that the wife or the woman or the daughter or the mother goes out and earns the money and the husband decides, I'm happy staying home. I think it is transitioning, but see, interdependence is an agreement between 2 people, in my opinion. I think that interdependence is anything that you agree on is no longer harmful. With will. I'm willing to stay home and take care of the kids until they're a certain age because I know that kids need mother in a different way than they need their father.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We both have our roles and we love very differently. We nurture very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so as genetically, I think we are more nurturing. There are the exceptions. There are always exceptions to the rule. Perhaps there are men, but in the olden days, we weren't encouraged to be ourselves. We were always encouraged to be the traditional mother and the traditional father.
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as that traditional game is going on in our minds, I think we have this thing, someone's going to come save me. Someone's going to do my dishes. Somebody's going to make my bed every morning, even though I sleep in it. But when agreed upon, is perfectly legit.
Mm.
But if you're doing it unwillingly or by force or by understanding, this is your role. This is what you're supposed to do. What are you complaining about?
Yeah. So it's kind of like when we are dependent on others for some of the things that we think we need to be dependent on them about. And let's say they don't even know that you are depending on them for those things, right? Like if I am depending on my husband to emotionally heal me all the time because I expect that from him. And he doesn't even know about it because it's not something like a mutual agreed upon type of responsibility from each of us.
Right. Without communicating that you need something or you need help or you need, you're emotionally not feeling well, you're feeling sad. If you're not able to communicate it to someone, how can you expect them to know?
Yeah, no, I know. But what I'm thinking is that even asking for the dependency of some of the things that we do ask for is a little bit wrong to begin with, because that expectation on certain things is wrong, because we shouldn't be expecting that. That needs to come from inside of us.
Right, you're right. The expectation that my husband is going to have the answer for me.
Yeah.
Or my mother or father, someone's going to have my answer for me.
Yeah.
So the expectation is the pressure you're putting on someone else.
Yeah.
So how do we communicate our expectation? Are we telling someone that they're not enough? Like, I'm expecting you to save me here. Let me tell you this, now save me. Or are we saying, I need help? So those two conversations, the communication is very different. The energy is very different. If I'm expecting something and I'm not fully transparent about what it is that I'm expecting, and I'm only saying that I don't feel well, I'm sad, and I'm just telling people, not everyone reads between the lines.
Mm-hmm.
So clear communication saying, I'm not feeling well and I need your help. I don't know what to do. Or I want to leave my marriage. And here are the things that are happening that I feel are not right, or are abusive, or are unhealthy, or they're causing a problem for the kids. Like, there are lots of things we think about. And then we go to our friends and talk about it, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And we want our friends to say, yeah, leave him. You want that validation. Where you are is okay, and you shouldn't stay there. But we need that validation. The validation is great to have. Like, they're always nice to haves and, must haves and must not haves. But it's a great to have someone say, Sana, you shouldn't suffer that much.
Yeah.
If it's causing you that much suffering, then consider seeking advice from an expert. Rather than telling people what to do, offer them different types of solutions. And if you can't put up with it, it's perfectly okay for you to leave. Whereas the culture says, don't leave. That marriage is for life. Your funeral's going to leave from that home. It's like a death sentence in the cases where there are legitimate issues.
I mean, it feels good to hear that when somebody else says that. Yeah, you're doing the right thing. And that's what validation is hearing it from somebody else and thinking that, okay, I am making the right decision. But what you said earlier about realizing the difference between asking for help and expecting the help, I think that's where my biggest challenge was, that there is such a thing as asking for help, but I think I didn't realize it because there was an ego issue with that, because that also comes with admitting that there is something wrong going on, or, like, I'm not good enough and I need help from outside. I guess shame or guilt or something like that comes with that.
You know what it is? We have these shame and guilt because of how we've been conditioned, but there is a healthy dependency. And a healthy dependency is when we ask, when we're willing to be vulnerable, when we're saying that I don't have all the answers. I feel shame when I think about this. So being transparent and honest and being vulnerable is a healthy dependency. I need help. Can you help me? I don't know how to do this alone.
And I think that would even solve so many problems if we were to ask for help and instead of expecting the help and just sitting there in that whole, I don't know for how many years, just sitting there expecting it to randomly show up instead of just going out there and asking, even, getting therapy, opening up a book to read about self-help or communicating with yourself, those kind of things. It's also help in a sort of way. Looking for help and asking for help. It could solve a lot of problems.
Absolutely. I think that that's why we're doing what we do, is shifting some traditional ways of doing things and exposing people to alternate ways of expressing ourselves rather than fighting. Tomorrow's conversation on Clubhouse is about conflict. And I know for those that are listening, you can probably catch the replays because this will be airing much later. But tomorrow's conversation is about conflict, about the mind and the heart, because the mind says one thing, I'm hurt, I can't stand that person, and the heart says, I love that person. And that constant battle between these parts of ourselves. One, I love the person that's hurting me. B, the mind says, you gotta leave. And the heart says, you gotta stay because you love him. And the mind says, you've gotta leave. He's not good. So there's this constant struggle. And then the belief systems pop in and say, oh, it's so shameful. And then the mind is ready to fight and the heart is ready to find a solution and ready to be vulnerable because it's coming from a place of love and the mind is coming from a place of pain. The ego is coming from pain. And that's the constant clashing of the two inner worlds, the one that wants to find a solution and move forward and the one that is stuck because of the love or because of the love for their family or the love for their husband or the love for their kids. There's something that holds them back from taking certain decisions. Also, in the case of divorces, I'm dependent on my husband or spouse or partner.
Yeah. Healthy dependency. I really like that. It's different types of dependency. There's a dependency of expectation coming out of nowhere, your belief systems, unreal expectation versus a healthy expectation and being vulnerable with that expectation and going out and saying it because that's why you're vulnerable, because you're showing your need.
Yes. So interdependence is me with someone, and intradependence is intra means within in Latin.
Okay.
So it's saying within myself, what can I come to terms with? What can I shift? And what can I do to come to terms with what's going on? So that intra is an outer experience, but then taking it within and having that dynamic of understanding and reframing words like dependency. Because dependency has a negative connotation. Oh, you're dependent on someone. Oh, you can't work. Oh, you have to be submissive because you're a woman, right? All these preset conditions or preset roles or behaviors for a woman. And coming to term with that is can I live with this? You're saying that it was confusing. It wasn't straightforward. You didn't get the answer of what you wanted to do. There was confusion whether should I do it or shouldn't I do it. Intra is within myself or within my culture. And inter is between me and another, between me and my culture, between me and my family, between me and a person. So inter means between and intra means within. So understanding that these terms can help us redefine dependency because as human beings, we do need each other. We're relational beings. And we're not superwomen. We're not supermen. We can do a lot, but we can't do everything. And that expectation of bringing it onto ourselves is expecting to do it alone is also unhealthy. And the key word is expectation. And somewhere in between, by asking for help, by sharing and communicating what our needs are, or by researching, finding a therapist, like doing something to help us better understand what's happening. Because sometimes we find it hard to have that conversation. It's because we're not clear within ourselves.
Yeah, it always has to start within. But we don't go within about being dependent on someone else. I would just think the opposite of it and say I'm totally independent. When it comes to relationships, there's no point of being totally independent or being totally dependent. It's the coming together and that connection between the two.
And understanding that it's like the yin and the yang. We all have male and female energy. And having that expectation that I have to be submissive and or I have to be the dominant one, then you're denying yourself of the full human experience.
And even like thinking from the parent side, because like looking at the marriage relationship, because we have arranged marriages, a lot of us, and it's like my parents put me in this marriage, so maybe my parents will come save me. If it's not just the husband, it's a parent or a sibling, or like we were saying earlier, supernatural thing or God or magic. It could be anyone that we are expecting to come and help us. I was just going to say we use the example of divorce a lot, but this can be applied to so many other things, this whole dependency factor. It's just something that we face in every issue that we face ourselves. We feel like, someone is going to come save us from this situation.
Yeah. I think anytime we complain about something that's happening and we don't have a proactive solution, we want someone to save us. We want someone to validate us. And I think that the whole conversation is about transitioning how we think about things and really developing a relationship between the mind and the heart. And there's a phrase I love, that the longest journey we'll ever make is the one from our head to our heart. So what we think and what we feel, and reconciling with that.
So asking for help and being vulnerable in that kind of situation, how do we deal with that kind of feeling that comes up? Asking for help was really hard for me.
We don't do it, which is why it's hard. Number one, we start doing it, it'll become easier. That's one. Number two is getting clear about what is it that I need right now. What am I expecting from someone? What do I need saving from?
Mm-hmm.
If we want someone to come and save us, what are they saving us from? And what does the other side look like? What is that outcome that you want, that you will feel saved? Having the point of where the journey begins and where the journey ends is important to know, to chart out the route.
This concept of men having to go out there and seek help, these are the type of things, these are the stigmas created that stop us from going out and asking for help or being that healthy dependency that you're talking about.
Right. And that's why it's so important to have conversations like this, where we are educating people about healthy dependency.
Mm-hmm.
And unhealthy dependency is when we expect someone to know that we are going through a crisis right now.
Yeah.
And they should pick up on my sadness, and they should pick up on all this. The onus is on the other person. Healthy dependency is communicating vulnerably from the I feel, I don't have all the answers, I know I need help, just being very open and honest. And so then we can separate healthy dependency from unhealthy dependency. And for men especially, I think because that pressure on them not to show their emotions because it's a sign of weakness, and understanding that showing emotions is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of empowerment. It takes courage. And use the muscle. The first time it's always hard, like in anything. We get on the bike for the first time, but we never say, oh, I'm never going to sit on that bike again if I have one fall. You get right back on and you try a little bit more, and the next time you'll go a little bit further. And then eventually it'll become a way of life. But you also have to know who to ask for help. You can't just ask anyone for help. The people that you go to, that you trust, that they will understand and support, not judge. But what happens is we know exactly who we want to be saved by. The husband, the mother, the father. It's not one, and we give them all the responsibility and release ourselves from that responsibility. That's such a disempowered state.
That is such a good point, to go to the right person to ask for help. Because when I was thinking that the times that I did speak up and ask for help or say what I wanted to say, I got things like suck it up, or you should be praying more, or it's normal, it's not a big deal, so what? And that made me think, okay, maybe I don't need so much help, So asking the right people for help, and the ones that will guide you.
like seeking professional help is great because they're not biased. They will listen to you and give you solutions for what you want. They might challenge you, but thinking in new ways is important. Having that mindset is important because if you're constantly going to be going back to square one, then you're going to be stuck waiting for that knight in shining armor for a long time. And God does come to save you. I believe in miracles.
Okay.
The song. So sometimes if we just take one step forward and be in gratitude, for example, and gratitude is not compensation for what is not.
Okay.
It is appreciation for what is. So here's another thing. Sometimes what happens is we're waiting for the knight in shining armor to come. And what we do is that knight in shining armor sometimes is the creator of the problem too, right? And we forget about that part. And the same person that hurts us is sometimes who we want the validation from.
Yeah, it's really complex. Yeah. I think that realizing that no one is coming at the end of the day, what really gave me the courage, but it was also that what you're saying that God does help. Of course, God is not going to help in some kind of magical way. And realizing that no one is here with me every single day to day. Like you were saying, no one is living my life. That was the biggest realization for me, was that I am looking for all of this validation and I'm looking for all of this help and someone to come save me. But at the end of the day, nobody's there with me, right? Day in and day out, every single moment of my life, I'm the one dealing with this alone. And so I'm the one who has to do this. It has to come from me. That was the biggest realization, that maybe this is the way, the God's way of helping me, is that realization that no one is coming and the action has to come from me. Because that magical things that happen in movies and shows and stuff like that, that magical thing is not going to happen in real life. But that's the kind of expectation that I think I was built in my head too from God.
Yeah. And so helping ourselves, people help those people that they see are trying. God helps people who know that they're helping themselves. You've got to help yourself. You've got to save yourself. And when you save yourself, when you become your own life jacket, other people will start pumping the air into that life jacket to help you stay afloat.
Yeah. Support will come. Validation will come.
It will come. But the expectation of where it's supposed to come from, who it's supposed to come from, how it's supposed to happen, having too much control is setting yourself up for staying there. And expecting is the killer. We can go into this in so many ways. Acceptance is recognizing that I am only going to get this much from that person that I want this much from. So this person that can only give me this much can't save me. My expectation is for them to give me this much. They repeatedly show up giving me this much. So the question is, that person that you want to be saved by, that someone's coming, are they really coming? Because you can only expect this much from them.
But Rabia, that hurts. That realization that that person is not going to come up to that level, that's, talking to yourself and accepting, that comes with a lot of hurt. And I think it's important to say that we have to feel that. It's that you have to go through that hurt. You have to go through that conversation with yourself. That's when you get to talk to yourself and feel it, like it hurts a lot to admit that. And because we want to avoid that type of hurt and we never admit it.
And so we avoid a couple of things. We avoid communicating as well. If we don't want it to hurt and we want to seek a solution with that particular person, then we have to make effort to communicate with that person.
Interdependent.
Exactly. And then also going within the construct of the culture of how this happens, why this happens, and then within of saying that this really hurt. Can I forgive the same person I want to be saved by? Can I stop being dependent on that person to love me, to protect me, to be the caregiver, to be whatever?
Yeah. Save me from the mother-in-law. Save me from cooking and cleaning. It could be anything.
Coming to save you comes in so many different shapes and sizes and scenarios.
Yeah.
So you're in a situation where there's a fight between you and someone. And your partner, your family member, your brother, your sister, your mother, your daughter, your son, you go to them to tell them what happened. And typically, this is my experience, what happens is they try to make me understand the other person's viewpoint. and justify or try to explain that rather than acknowledge me.
Yeah.
I want to be saved. We want to be acknowledged. We want to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
And sometimes just being seen and heard makes us feel saved. That someone heard me, someone understood me, someone gets what I'm saying. They get it. And they're not telling me that what I'm going through is wrong by telling me what others are doing. There's so many layers.
Yeah. I think acknowledgement is when you're right, not the validation.
You're right, but you're not wrong. See, acknowledgement is, in this scenario that I'm describing, is addressing the feeling someone is feeling.
Okay.
You feel hurt. The fight happened. Two people disagreed on something, and one person did something to hurt the other person. So we can talk about what happened, and then we can talk about the impact of what happened. The impact of what happened was the hurt. So when someone typically goes to someone to complain when they want to be saved, between the lines is the pain. But the conversation is all around what happened.
But sometimes you can get stuck in that cycle of getting acknowledgement and, talking about it, getting acknowledgement. That's how we can, see patterns and see behaviors.
For sure. But then we can go acknowledge it ourselves. Oh, I'm hurt.
But you know how I've started to do that and realize what I was feeling and kind of pinpoint the patterns is journaling every single day, what I'm feeling that day. I think journaling has been really learning in so many different issues, not just this one, but so many different areas.
For sure. So when we write these things down, it's great because it helps us shift our mind from the sadness to I am sad, from what happened, why, and going into this whole spiral of that emotion and that experience. And when we just write it down, I felt sad when someone did this. Let it go. Then you become your own savior.
That's what I was going to say. You have to do that work. You have to do that communication with yourself and your relationships. No one is coming.
And one more tip, affirm. Affirmations are great, that I've got this. I can do this. Because we're disempowered, we think someone's going to come in. We need to start empowering ourselves by recognizing we're capable, that we have the capability and the capacity to get through this, and by strengthening our potential.
That answers what I was going to say. Was realization first hit me that no one is coming to save me. It was really sad. And I felt really bad for myself.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing, that I'm alone in this.
Exactly.
How can anyone want what you want more than you? How can someone save you from something that you want so much? And they're once removed. But how can someone save you from something that you want badly, not they want badly?
Yeah, you're right. Expectation. Incorrect expectation.
We are wishful thinking. In an ideal world, it would be great. And perhaps there are those angels out there. Perhaps.
Yeah.
But they're far in between.
Yeah. But when that expectation is not met, it hurts bad.
But only if they know they've disappointed you, if you have never even told them.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know.
And it's so important to stop these thoughts when they happen. A lot of our thoughts validate the incorrect belief.
Yes.
Analysis paralysis. Of the hundreds of thoughts we think, thousands of thoughts that we think, 97% are not ever going to happen.
Yeah.
One thing is going to happen. 3% of our thoughts are reality. And we think about all these scenarios without knowing all the facts. And we expect people to come back and save us. We expect, the employer to give us a raise. We expect the kids to choose their ideal partner we want.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we're always living in this disempowered state with the expectation, with the understanding that someone out there is going to bring me my peace, is going to bring me my freedom, is going to bring me whatever it is, my dinner. I don't know.
Yeah. We can't expect anyone else to read your mind and know what you are depending on.
So, Sana, this has been a really interesting conversation today.
Yes, it has. And like I said, it's very dear to me because it was the biggest realization for me. But when I looked into it more, I realized on how it's actually a quote. No one is coming to save you. You have to save yourself.
It's all about taking your power back.
Yeah.
and creating that mindset and using some of these techniques that we've mentioned today. And I think it's really important to understand that if you want to create a mindset, then you have to choose that mindset and you have to know what you want.
Yeah.
So from cultural beliefs
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that, someone coming to save you means that there is an expectation, to understanding that this is a construct of our culture that is based on dependency, and re-looking at dependency through the lens of interdependence and intradependence. And then also recognizing that I can be independent in how I think, how I choose my thoughts, what I do, how I save myself. Independence can be that as well.
Yeah. I was just going to add that, this is the same issue in so many different cultures, but coming from our culture, because of the stigmas, because of the taboos, because of the intercollectivism that we have talked about in other episodes as too, I think it just kind of makes the problem even worse, or harder.
I just want to say one more thing that I didn't mention earlier. The cultural construct is that we come from an authoritative culture, right? The South Asian culture. So it automatically, on top of that provider, protector, it's patriarchal.
Absolutely. And so that's why this expectation is even bigger of that someone is coming to save you. But at the end of the day, no one is coming. You have to save yourself.
You've got to save yourself.
Yep, you.
Yep. When you show up, God shows up. When you show up, people show up, because the expectation is actually pushing them away. Release that expectation. You hear, how can I help you? What do you need?
Yeah, it actually was that. I would say my experience, that's what happened. I agree completely. This was an amazing conversation, Rabia. I loved it.
Great topic. And, it just gets better and better.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to more. Really looking forward to the one about men's mental health, because that's such a big stigma. Well, this was great, Rabia. It's that time of the episode.
Yep. We are two Desi girls.
Reinventing cultural norms.
With love.
With love.
See you
See
next time.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Please rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow the Rabia and Sana Show on social medias.
Remember, you can watch the video version on YouTube, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.
If you want life coaching services, or you are reinventing cultural norms for yourself and think you would be a great guest and want to be on our show, please email contact@therabiaandsanashow.com.
And be sure to check out our next episode. See you next time.
See you next time.